Hey guys, Gathering the Magic back again, and here's the land video that I've been wanting to do for a while and have mentioned in previous videos. There's a lot to cover here. The more that I go looking into this, the more complicated it is. So I'll try to go over as much of it as I can and try to let you know how much of it is known and how much of it is just speculation on my part. But let's start with the basics. The one thing that we know about land is there's going to be 14 different land types. And those 14 types I have listed here. Now, they said that the types can be natural, magical, or occupied. And if it's natural, it will provide one of 4 resources. So I put down my guess as to what I thought each type could have. Like for plains, I thought, okay, well that's pretty obvious that it'll probably have grain. Forest will obviously have wood. They may do something where it's completely random, where you get a plains and for some reason it could produce stone. But the key thing to keep in mind is it's only going to produce one of the 4. You won't get to pick. So like if you have a plains, you're not going to be able to pick, okay, well this time I want it to produce grain, next time I want it to produce wood. No, it's only going to be one that is set when you unlock your land. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If the type of land is magical, there's one of 6 different resources it could produce on that type of land. So for example, for plains, I kind of associate that with the life splinter. So I'm thinking the magical resource that you would get off of plains would be the life resource. Now again, they may make this completely random where you have a plains, it ends up being magical, and for some reason it produces a fire resource. But then again, just keep in mind that it's only going to produce one of the 6 resources. So there's that. And another thing that I thought of is when the game first launches land, no one has collected any resources yet. Everything is completely new. So where are the resources going to come from for you to make your buildings? So, because in the beginning, you're going to want to make, let's say you have a plains and it produces grain. The first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to build, they'll probably call it a farmhouse, to start harvesting your grain. Okay, to build that building, you're going to need probably stone, which will produce bricks. Wood will produce lumber, or will probably produce steel, and then you're going to have bread to feed your monsters. So where are you going to get these resources from to create your building to actually start harvesting for yourself? Well, what I'm thinking of, they're going to have, as soon as land launches, you're going to have a voucher store. You're going to have a place where on the marketplace, these refined items are available for purchase. And this would be a great voucher sink. This is exactly what they need. They need someplace that people are going to spend vouchers on a consistent basis. Because like I said, in the beginning of the game, no one's going to have refined items. And they've already said for the buildings that one of the things for natural resources is you're going to have to refine the items. So if you can get grain, you're going to have to refine it probably to bread, stone to bricks, wood to lumber, and ore will become steel. So like I said, eventually it'll get to the point where players will be able to craft these on their own, and then you'll have the choice of, okay, do I want to spend a voucher on the store to purchase my bread, or do I want to purchase it from a player? But yep, in the beginning, and I think going forward, you're going to see the voucher store listing refined items from land. And of the 4 natural resources, I think grain is the most important. Like I said, monsters got to eat. You are constantly going to be harvesting and refining. Monsters are going to have to work the land. And the only thing grain to me makes any sense of is to feed the monsters so that they will work on the land. So that'll be a requirement. So you're constantly going to be using grain. Now the other resources are important, but once you have your buildings built, at level 1, you're going to start harvesting. You're going to start refining. You're not going to be spending as much wood, ore, and stone until you go to either repair the building or to upgrade the building. So I think if you have grain as one of your resources, don't be disappointed. Don't say, oh, I wish I would have got stone or ore. you are going to be in constant demand for your grain. Another thing here, legendary occupied lands I think are going to be the most expensive, because the only way you can get essences in the game is from an occupied land. So if you want to craft an item, you have to have a magical resource and you have to have an essence. So the land that will produce the most essences is, of course, legendary. So when you open your land plot, you want it to say legendary and you want it to say occupied, and then you're good to go. If you do get a legendary land but it's not occupied, it's natural or magical, you need to use it for harvesting. Don't waste a legendary land storing your items. Use your legendary land to harvest as much resources as you can. Okay, so let's get into the buildings now. So for the buildings, they've already listed for leveling buildings that there's going to be one and only one building that you can build on each land plot. And you can use them for harvesting, refining, and storage for natural. For magical, it's either harvesting or storage. And then for monster essence, it's harvesting. So with there being 4 different resources, 3 different type of buildings, there's 12 different total type of resource buildings that are going to be available to be built. Magical, it's the same thing. There's 6 different resources that you're going to have to harvest and 6 different resources that you can store. There's going to be 1 building just for harvesting the essences. I thought that was kind of interesting that there's a building for harvesting but not for storing. So we'll talk about that in a second. And also a building for actually crafting and creating the item. Now, what I'm thinking is, let's say you have a farmhouse where you're refining or you're harvesting, let's say, your grain. It'll probably be per hour. Where's the graphic? Right here. I don't know if you can see this. Hopefully it pops up. But there is a picture of the land plot. And on the bottom it'll say like a sawmill for the forest, and it'll say how much wood you collect per hour. So let's say in an hour you collect X amount of wood. Now you've harvested that. You probably can't harvest any more until you either move that to the marketplace to sell or actually have another plot of land with a storage building where you can move it to the storage building, store it, and then continue harvesting. So this may be something that people haven't thought of, is you're going to need many different plots of land if you want to do things yourself. Not only are you going to have to harvest the item, you're going to have a place to store it. So there's a couple ways you could do this. If you say, hey, I don't want to harvest it, I don't want to refine it, I just want to store all the stuff on my land, and I want to actually craft the item myself. I'll let somebody else do all the harvesting and do all the hard work. Well, you're going to need 10 plots of land to store all the resources. You're going to need 1 plot, you're going to need 4 different plots of land for the 4 natural resources. You're going to need 6 plots of land for each of the 6 magical resources, and then you're going to need 1 plot of land to actually make your item. So altogether you're going to need 11 plots if you want to go about it that way. If you want to do everything and say, hey, I don't want to go and spend my DEC or spend my vouchers buying from someone else, I want to do it all on my own. Hopefully you have at least 26 plots of land. That's going to be the minimum number that you're going to need to do everything, as far as harvesting all your own natural resources, refining them all, storing them all, harvesting all the magical resources, storing them all, having at least 1 occupied land plot where you can get your essences, and then actually making the item yourself. So this is only going to be for people that, pretty much have, what is it, a region is 100? Or no, a region's 1,000. A track is 100. So if you have a track, you're pretty much set. Otherwise, you're going to need to pick up, 26 land plots if you want to do it all on your own. And you can't build every type of building on every land plot. They have said in their notes that you can only build certain type of buildings on certain types of land. So if you have 26 plots of land, and they're all plains, that's not going to work. So you do need a mixture of different plots of land. Okay, let's get into totems a little bit. So totems will have different effects on land. Um, they said, it could speed up your harvesting time, increase the amount you get for each hour or however long it takes to harvest. There will be totems possibly to reduce repair costs, because eventually as you use your buildings and you gather and harvest resources, your buildings take some wear and tear and they are going to have to be repaired. There's also going to be totems that possibly will decrease the time required to mint your cards. And I'm wondering, even though it hasn't been specifically mentioned, will they have a totem that increases your chance of getting a legendary item? So this is something that I thought of possibly could be, but it's not guaranteed yet. So here's the thing. Are the totems going to be Splinter specific or give bonuses to everything? So for example, say you have a totem and it's common and it speeds up harvesting time 10%. Will that be harvesting time for all natural resources, or will it be speeds up 10% for grain or 10% for stone? So that's something to think about too. If you are self-sufficient and you have 26 different plots of land, you're doing all these different things, you may need a lot of different totems in your inventory for different circumstances. Let's say, for example, you've crafted your item. Do you want a totem that reduces the time so that you craft that item quicker? Or do you want a totem that increases your chance of a legendary? Okay, probably the legendary one. Now, you've crafted your item. Your building is probably damaged. You're probably going to want to pick up your legendary totem here, put it in storage, and then you want to get out a repair totem to repair your building so that your building repairs quicker so then you can start making your next item. So, people are probably thinking, well, I only need one totem for each plot of land. You may need several totems for each plot of land. You may want to plop the totem down to harvest quicker or to increase the amount. Then you're going to want to pick that totem up, and if you have a plot of land to mint the cards, you're going to want one for that and then for repairing. So keep in mind, you're probably going to need a lot of totems, and of course, the higher rarity totem will give you the better effects. And lastly, well, not lastly, but we're getting close, for your item and spell cards, just in case people didn't know, two things you need. You have to have a monster essence, and there's 6 different types, or there's 6 different types of resources. There's one type of essence. So you need those 2 things to craft an item. The type of magical resource you have, and there's 6 different ones, determines the splinter of the item crafted. So basically what that means is there's 6 different magical resources. So when you pick one of these 6 to go with your essence, that's going to be the splinter of the item that you receive. So like, let's say you use Reclaim Souls for Death and an essence. You're going to get some type of death spell or death item, but you don't get to pick. It's random. But you can at least pick the splinter of the item you want. So let's say your best team is fire. So you're going to want to pick a spark stone for your magical resource and then an essence. And then you will craft the item and you will get some type of fire item. Another thing that they've hinted at is that these items that you create, you're probably going to be able to combine them and level them up like monster and summoner cards. So let's say you create a life sword that gives +1 damage to all your monsters, +1 melee. Maybe that's level 1. Maybe if you can level up to level 2, it will give you +1 melee damage and maybe +1 speed or something like that. So even though you craft an item, you probably are going to be able to combine them and level them up. So keep that in mind. So you're going to want many, many items and spells. And a question that I have is, are there going to be gold foil versions of these items and spells? So if you craft an item, let's say a sword or whatever, could there be a gold foil version that's automatically a higher level? So that's something that I thought was kind of an interesting question. Dark energy crystals, they've already said, will be used in the game for land, for speeding up the harvesting time. for reducing the repair time and help speed up the time for actually crafting your item. Now, everyone is going to want to do this. So everyone is going to want DEC, so load up on DEC. DEC is under its peg. You are going to need it. Now the amount that you're going to need, I have no idea. Don't know if it's going to be 50 DEC, 100 DEC, 500 DEC. It'll probably depend on the level of your building and what you're trying to do, but here's the main thing. DEC is so hard to get now anyway. You know that once this goes live and everyone's going to want to craft items as fast as they can, they're going to want to harvest as fast as they can, repair as fast as they can. Get as much DEC as you can now while it's under peg. Load up so that when land launches, you're not going to have to worry about DEC spiking to peg or above. You're going to have all the DEC that you need. So get your DEC now. Okay, guys, this is part 1. I may do a part 2 if I think of some more information that I want to go over. Like I said, a lot of this is speculation. Some of it is known, but thought you guys might find this interesting. Like I said, there's some things in here that I think people really didn't think about as far as like how many plots of land that you're going to need. Right off the bat, they're going to have a store where you're going to have to, this is the only place you're going to be able to start building your buildings right away, is you're going to have to go to the store and you're going to have to buy them. So I think this is a voucher sink. So load up on your DEC, get some vouchers so that you can purchase your resources and start building your buildings and start crafting your items. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comments section below. And if I can think of any more information to update this video, I will add that in a later video. Hope you found it useful. Thanks again to the 200+ subscribers. Let's keep going, and happy grinding. We'll see you again soon.